And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are we doing tonight?
Blake, I almost feel hungover from those two games yesterday.
First off, we were doing a show so late last night.
Oh my
I
God.
actually just went back and viewed it. You know how much I hate listening to myself. And
Yeah,
I
I'm
was
the
like,
same.
man, I bet I was so bad. It actually wasn't that bad. I thought
No, it was a great show, but
Yeah,
the
great show.
back-to-back games and how stressful the two of them were and close they were. Not actually stressful, but like how close they were and engaging they were. And then for us to do that show after, you immediately hopped off, but then I went back and edited everything after. I legitimately feel hungover today. So, but it's the best time of the year. I don't care. I'm excited.
Hey, at least it's 11 p.m. on the West Coast. It was
Right.
1 a.m. here for me, okay? And by the way, just throwing this out here, I have two small children who do not sleep past the clock, all right? So,
Fair.
nevertheless, we did our review last night of the games, our recap of the games last night. If you didn't see it, you can catch it over on our YouTube channel. But, Joe, we got a big preview here today.
Mm-hmm.
The national championship is upon us next Monday. It will be here. We got Michigan versus Washington. First time in 10 years that there's not an SEC team in this one. It's going to be really fun. I think a lot of people will be engaged in this one because an SEC team is not in there. Nevertheless, we will give you reasons on why Michigan should win or what they have to do to win. Same with Washington. And then we'll give a little preview. Also, Caden Salter, the Liberty quarterback, went into the portal. Did you see, by the way, you're probably way too young for this. Do you remember Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger when he played when he played the superhero, the villain Sandbad?
Yes.
Did you see the way he's wearing his helmet and them comparing him to that? Great. We'll also talk about Salter, but we got lots of things to talk about here tonight, Joe.
Yeah, before we hop into it, I feel like my main focus on this game coming up this Monday, it's really intriguing how there's just two completely different styles between these two teams. You know, styles make fights is the very common phrase that's brought up when we talk college football. They are so different, complete polar opposites, and I think that that's what's going to make this game either really entertaining or it could end up being a blowout. It could end up being really lopsided because one team's significant strength over the other is going to be so overwhelming that it makes the game lopsided. It's not going to be the TCU Georgia game. Okay. We don't need to relive that. But it could end up being lopsided.
We hope it won't be, right? But it's interesting you bring it up because it's going to be the topic that I talk about. Two completely different styles offensively. Two kind of not remotely, but two different styles defensively, right? One likes to send pressure. The other will sit back in coverage. But we'll talk about it. And look, I know that the Washington fans do not like me right now. They want me to pick Michigan. Well, don't tip me, damn it. Okay. But it is a good old school offensive mindset to some extent, which with a lot of new school principles. Okay. The Wilson touchdown, Joe, is just a triple option. Either you give it, you keep it and run, or you're going to throw it into the flat to Wilson. Look, man, they were just really well coached. I think Sharon Moore caught a great game going back and watching it. I'll talk about that here today when we get to me on this point. Any other guys maybe hitting the portal besides Salter that we might mention just for throwing it out there?
Well, I brought it up to you in pre-production. Nick Skirton also was previously I don't know his real name.
Purdue.
He also went as Nick Carraway one time on the Purdue roster. I don't know the reasoning for why he had two different names, but he is somebody who popped on my radar as a draft prospect that I noticed early on in the season. Other people that I talked to in the scouting community have acknowledged how good he is. Similar to Deion Burks, the receiver that was on Purdue, not nationally known, but as soon as he ends up at a big school with a really good defense, he could have a huge impact. I want to see him at Missouri. He right now has a visit to Missouri. He's got one to FSU. If he ended up on that Missouri defense, ooh, man, they could be really good.
Yeah, Mizzou, look, man, it's so crazy. A year ago today, we were on the fence of is Eli Drinkwitz on the hot seat. Now players are flying in droves. Their collective is rolling. When we do all of our teams during the offseason on what we're going to talk about and recapping, dude, we're going to have to talk a little glowingly about Mizzou that I know that you don't like.
Yeah. What do you mean? I have always supported Missouri. I just picked
Eli Drinkwitz. You said he looks like a high school chemistry teacher.
The only criticism that I've directed at
Missouri.
Like no, I don't. The only criticism I have directed at Missouri was towards Brady Cook because I thought that he was getting a little bit overhyped compared to his capabilities. And reality ended up setting in for what he was able to do. They had a really good season. I'm excited for their future, but I am not a Missouri hater. There's only one school that I legitimately hate, and I come on this show and I bash, and you know who that is.
USC.
Yeah. I'm admitted. No one else. I don't hate anyone else. I'm just a realist.
Yeah. I mean, look, it is what it is. I like Mizzou. I like Drinkwitz.
Yeah.
I think he got a bad rap there at the beginning, but they're doing really good now. So let's do this. We got lots to discuss. We got a national championship here to talk about, Joe. Really fired up for that myself. And we'll give you both the reasons why Washington should win and why Michigan should win. I think it's going to be a good one. Two completely different styles, but we got a lot to get into. Dylan says, who do you girls have in the Natty? We'll talk about that next because we will give our preview of what we think. So what they have to do to win, preview, and then we'll talk a little bit of portal here. All right. Let's talk about our good friends at BetOnline. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those social media groups, share to all of those social media pages. You're watching us on YouTube, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Don't go anywhere. We're back next. We got a lot to discuss. It's Natty Talk. We do that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. They just couldn't seal the deal.
That soundbite now goes back to being very funny. Very, very funny.
Did you? Well, first off, I saw something today about Sark, and I don't think I need to come out here and defend Sark, but I saw somebody post a stat, Jimbo Fisher having a better record through 3 years than Sark did at Texas through the first 3 years. Jimbo never got to a playoff with A&M.
Yeah.
It's a massive difference. But it also goes to a point that I want to bring up. I know that my video got clipped about the last 10 years. Now, the context was taken out of it. They completely took out the context. A&M still, from a win-loss record, the last 10 years has more wins than Texas does.
Yeah.
So again, this program, from a win-loss perspective, has been better. So now, does Sark have them moving in the right direction? Yes. They're going into the SEC. Let's see how they do in year one in the SEC. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for them, clearly, in the SEC. But I'm going to punt on, get that out of my face about comparing him and Jimbo Fisher for the current moment.
I also want to, I know that we're going to get into this preview, but I also have to add in there, I don't think them getting to the playoff necessarily constitutes them as being back. Texas is not back yet just because
Big 12 was really down, man. Big 12 was really down.
It was a really shit year for the Big 12, and that was what I said coming into this game. They were the least tested team out of any of the teams. The only tough matchups they had were Alabama and Oklahoma, and they lost to Oklahoma. So they had a good season. Are they back to where they were before when they were constantly in national championship conversations? No, absolutely not. It's one good season. And they didn't even win their playoff game. So, there's not that much to really give them credit for.
Right. And I agree with that. Look, I mean, the bottom line is that they are moving in a direction that they have not been in. They're recruiting at a really high level. They're only going to get better. I do think that Quinn Ewers does not give them the best ability to win, which is something I think I'll talk about during the offseason. I don't think it's the time. I do kind of think they maybe should have moved on from him, but he can develop and get better. You cannot replace his experience. I understand Sark not wanting to move on from him and go with Manning, but we got a lot of time to talk about that in the offseason. One thing, Joe, that we obviously are going to be talking about at least this week, and I'm sure even going into next week, is this national title game between Michigan and Washington. So today we're going to do what we believe both teams should do to win. Let's start with Michigan, though, because they are the number one seed. Let's go in chronological order like we did last week. What do you believe that Michigan has to do to win the national title?
I think the most glaring and obvious one, and this is really it's a very cliche thing to say, that when we talk about a team facing a high-tempo, electric passing attack, you got to control the time of possession. But the reasoning is obvious from what we saw that happened last night. When Texas ran the football was when they were the most successful. And when they got away from that and they tried to get too cute and they tried to do all these different things, that was what forced them to play catch-up at the end of that game. Washington's run defense has been porous at times this year, and all the teams that have lost to them have failed to continue to lean on their run game. Washington has not faced a run game this good. They have not faced a unique and creative rushing attack like this Michigan one. So for Michigan to win this game and to position themselves, and why they would win this game is if they just play the way that they did against Alabama. Lean on your backs, lean on Corum, lean on Donovan Edwards. Incorporate J.J. McCarthy as a rusher when needed. Don't try to open things up for whatever stupid reason just because you go down 10 points. That is how you get caught, like Texas did, like Oregon did, and like everyone else before them did. So, again, it sounds cliche, but stick with your guns. Run the damn ball.
I 1,000% agree. I do think that Michigan can get home after what I just saw them do, because I still think that Michigan had some question marks. Look, I know that you played Ohio State. I know you played Penn State, but you did it against, David Cullen, our good buddy who played quarterback at Michigan, was on his show today, and he said something like, hey, man, you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. Well, you beat the man, right? Like, whatever you believe and think about the University of Alabama and Nick Saban and, Jalen Milroe sucked, or whatever your take is, okay? You got to beat the man. That is the man. Beating them gets you over the hump, okay? Get you to the national title game. But, Joe, I 1,000% agree. We talked about this last night. You can't abandon the running game on Washington, because you can run on them over and over and over again. And it's why I'm not going to make my pick yet, but it's why I think Harbaugh's not going to overreact, I don't think. He didn't overreact in a big stage against Alabama. They stayed to their game plan. They stayed within themselves. And, Joe, they found ways to imp a flat on that 4th and 2. That's when we talk about styles making fights, I'm really interested to see, because I think you hit the nail on the head with one thing. Michigan has to win the time of possession. If this game gets into 35, 38 plus points, Michigan will not win. You cannot get in a shootout with this team. And because, look, defensively, I still do not believe that they have the dudes on the outside that can cover this three-headed behemoth at wide receiver. I don't think that there's anybody that was in this playoff, we talked about this for a month, that has the dudes. Maybe Alabama could have done it because they do have dudes in their secondary. Regardless of that, Joe, I don't know if Michigan has the dudes in the secondary to cover that three-headed monster. Time of possession will be key. Don't get out of your game plan. Be What you remember the movie Aladdin, and the genie comes out and he's giving him advice about what he should do with Jasmine. He's trying to, make Jasmine his wife, and Robin Williams as genie turns into a bee, and he goes, "Be yourself." That's all that I want to, like, when I think about Michigan and winning this football game, it's like what the movie Aladdin said: "Be yourself." That's it.
That was not a reference I thought that we were going to get on this show, but
I could make another reference, like our guy over at Always Irish who keeps coming after me. Just throwing this out there. You sound like the parrot off of Aladdin, but
that guy sucks. Look, one other part of this too that you kind of hinted at here with Michigan secondary, we watched Marvin Harrison Jr. pop off, and now I know that you beat Ohio State, but Washington's got 3 guys that are going to be hard to cover and to keep up with. That is going to be difficult. At the end of the day, in line with what I'm talking about here, you're saying be yourself. Trying to make too many adjustments and too many anticipations for how can we counter and slow down this passing attack. Everyone's tried to do that, and it hasn't freaking worked. It has not been successful for all these teams that have tried to slow down Washington's passing attack. And the only thing that has slowed it down was the freaking flu. That was the only thing that slowed down their ability to throw the football. Time of possession is critical. Controlling the tempo and the pace of the game is critical. Keeping the ball out of their hands is going to be critical. You're realistically not going to keep them from scoring. They're going to find ways to score. Yes, you can get 1 stop or 2 stops here or there, but the less amount of possessions that they have is going to set you up to win this football game. That's a big reason why I think Michigan could find themselves with a serious edge here, because there's not a better team in the country that has been more creative at running the football. And when things aren't working, as you're talking about here in the Alabama game, when things weren't working, they found other ways to get the ball in the hands of their backs to pick up yards when they need it. They found the hot hand with Corum, and they kept relying on him. Doing that will find you a victory in this game. It's all going to come down to the time of possession. They have to win by, I'm going to throw out a number, 35 minutes, I would say, is what the goal should be for the time of possession in this game, minimum. You need to beat them by a whole 5 minutes because they can score so quickly.
Well, and what's crazy is that's exactly what Washington did to Texas. Like, people don't realize that's the 100%.
They have a good tempo capability too, which is why you got to keep it away from them.
You got to keep them away from them because, look, Washington, a lot like, and they got compared a lot last night to 2019 LSU. When you have an offense like that, what makes them so dangerous, Joe, now we're going to find out the status of Johnson. Let's see what, is going on with him. I heard some things, but, let's see what goes on with Johnson, their running back. But, Joe, they can throw it on you. They can go up tempo. They can run it on you, play time of possession. You got to keep it away from them. But one thing I will say, okay, about this game, I don't think that I love the amount of touches that you gave Blake Corum. I know he ran the ball 19 times, okay? But because I think that you're going to get more possessions because of how Washington scores and wants to do things, Corum had 19 carries, and then he had 2 catches. I think you're going to have to even be more creative on how you get him involved. But I also want to see what J.J. McCarthy can do with his legs. I thought, I really during the game last night, I was thinking to myself, like, hey, man, these little, power outside zone power runs with J.J. McCarthy are working on a really fast Alabama defense. Well, the way that I just kept thinking about all day, Joe, is if you can do that against Bama, you're 1,000% going to be able to do that against Washington. Okay. So I want to see them get a little bit more creative there in the run game with McCarthy. I know you don't want to get him hurt. You want to keep him upright. He's coming off an injury, but I also want to see that. Any other thoughts about what you want to think from Michigan on why they or how or what they need to do to win?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me in the final piece here is what we talked about with Texas, where you couldn't turn the ball over if you're Texas. You couldn't have those fumbles. You couldn't have unfinished drives. Michigan can get away with not putting points on the board on some of these drives.
Well, we think they can.
That's fine. Right. I think I think that that's fine because you're going to have some really successful defensive plays where you're going to get a big stop. You're going to have a successful blitz like we saw in the Alabama game. But you can't turn the ball over. Plain and simple. You cannot turn the ball over against this Washington team and expect to win. I feel like I'm bringing up just a lot of really simple football principles here, but because of how effective they are at capitalizing on opponents' mistakes, you have to play a clean football game. Offensively, they were really clean against Alabama. The special teams miscues almost cost them. They can't do that in this game as well. All of that stuff, mistake-free, no turnovers, no muff punts. J.J. McCarthy can't do that stupid shit where he tries to throw the ball out of bounds on the first play and throws it right to the defender.
Talk about that. Like, so
I forgot it happened until this morning.
I do want to bring up a point. They blew that call. If you go and look it up, I was listening to an NCAA and NFL official today. A defender does not have to be in possession, like meaning he does not have to be in to be the first one to touch it.
I don't know.
You know how I know that?
How?
Because it literally happened against Alabama earlier this year. Earlier this year, there was an interception thrown. I think it was Tennessee, or I forget the game. Maybe it was Kentucky. That a defender was out of bounds. Okay, did not come and reestablish himself, and went back inbounds, caught a pass, and was down. And
maybe that was the wrong call at the time.
Well,
the whole play was stupid, though. It was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Insane.
Anyway, okay. My final thing is the thing that you mentioned there at the end. Brother, look, I'm just going to tell you. Okay, you said, I know I don't want to be cliche with the turnovers and all this kind of stuff. Dude.
A lot of truth to it.
No, but it's more truth. You can turn the ball over against Alabama because your defense can make a stop against that offense. Everybody knew, even we talked about it, Joe. Nobody thought that Alabama was going to run. Now, I did say they clapped their cheeks, but I did say by 10 points. Whatever. No one thought you were going to beat them by 30. We knew you were going to get stops, okay? The bottom line is if you have those special teams mishaps against Washington, they've been doing it all year. You cannot give Michael Penix in this offense more possessions. That's how you'll lose the game. So we talked about how you will win. You better clean up special teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't figure out your snapper situation. That kid can't do what he did in that game.
Do you have any eligibility left?
No, I don't.
They wouldn't take you anyway.
Exactly.
Look, I Washington fans, I'll talk about this in the next segment. They do not want me to pick them. Go Big Blue.
Oh my God.
I'm just messing. I hadn't made my pick yet. All right. Give us a reason. So we'll get into the Washington one. So Joe, we just talked about our reasons for why Michigan will, or what they have to do to win. Let's go over to Washington. I'll kick it back over to you to start off. This has been your team. And look, I'll give you credit. All right. I make jokes all the time, but I got to give credit where credit's due. In the preseason, you said that this team would play for a national title. And I will admit, you took a lot of heat from a lot of people, okay, when you said that in August. Well, here you go, man. Here's your flowers. You picked this team to be in the national title game. Here we are. Since it's been your team all year, what do you think about the Washington Huskies? What did they have to do to win?
We illustrated this, what we were just talking about on the Michigan side of things. Their secondary, very few secondaries in college football, are good enough to keep up with Washington. It's just an impossible task when you have three guys that are going to go on to be top 100 NFL draft picks, whether it's this class or the following draft. All of those guys in the Texas game we watched, even though they were really closely covered against Texas, there were a lot of plays where there was really good coverage. They are all so good. Polk, McMillan, and Adunze are all so good at making these highly contested concentration catches in important situations. You have to be aggressive. And I think Washington has always been aggressive. Why I am very in on them, and I know we're going to get to like our actual solid prediction, but their aggressiveness is going to pay off in this game against a team with a good secondary, but not an elite one. Get the ball out quick. Do not allow that defensive line to tee off on you. They're going to try and send pressure like they did against Jalen Milroe. Penix is so good in the pocket. He is so good at maneuvering in and out of pressure and getting away from guys. Be aggressive. Get the ball out quick. Don't take any sacks. That, to me, is the biggest thing for Washington.
All right. So I'm actually going to revert to something that we just talked about with Michigan and what Michigan's got to do. Last night, Washington had the time of possession, won the time of possession 36-20. Okay. Believe it or not, Joe, they ran the ball. Okay. 31 times in that game. They threw it 39. I don't know what the status of Johnson is. Now, taking him being out would be a massive blow. It didn't look good there at the end. Washington fans will probably let us know in the comments what's going on with him. Dude, I don't know if they're going to be able to run the football in this really good defensive front that Michigan has. They have one of the better front sevens in the country, number one total defense in the country, or number two total defense in the country. I don't know if you don't abandon it. I don't know if in the first half that you just don't completely abandon trying to play Michigan's game. Don't play into what exactly that they want to do, right? Like, don't play into trying to win the time of possession game. Dude, I think you got to make this one high scoring and see if J.J. McCarthy can go blow for blow with Michael Penix. I think Washington's clearly got the better quarterback in this game, clearly. I don't know if you just don't go out there and go full abandon. Attack their weaknesses, attack those boundary corners. And I don't want to say F the running game, but there's parts of me that kind of wants to say, do exactly – you're getting compared to LSU 2019. What did that team do early against a really good front seven in Clemson? Joe Burrow came out there throwing that sumbitch like it was nobody's business. I'm not saying to abandon the running game. What I'm saying is – don't play into the style that they want you to. You got three receivers that will eat. Joe, we predicted this for a month. Texas was 97th in the country in passing yards allowed. This defense has not seen anything like this. Michigan has not seen this kind of offense all year long. I don't know if their season has prepared them for what Washington has on the outside. With all of that being said, there's going to be a tale of two halves in this game, clearly, after halftime. Pound them through the air, get the ball out, make this defense run, and then come back and midway through the third quarter and fourth quarter and do what you do. Bleed the clock, run the football. That's what they've done all year. Okay? I went on PFF today. Joe, did you know that they throw the ball nearly 67% of the time in the first half? 67% of the time. Ask me what it is in the second half.
What is it?
Damn near 50-50. It's 55-45. So that has been their game plan all year long. Go out there and let your boys eat. Let the receivers eat, because they're not going to – I'm telling you, they are not going to stop you. Now, Washington fans hate me. They hate my guts, okay? Rightfully so. I have poo-pooed on them.
Yes.
Team for a long time. Now I think that now that you're here with this team, you have the ability to take it all. You cannot take away Michigan's biggest weakness is their boundary secondary. Your biggest strength is what you have on the outside.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head here with, and it goes in line with what I was just saying a second ago. You have to, and you have this opportunity and this advantage of going up against a quarterback. And I'm sorry, Michigan fans, I'm sorry to be very blunt here and say this. J.J. McCarthy, and this shouldn't be a hot take, is nowhere near the level of quarterback that Michael Penix is. J.J. McCarthy being asked to throw the ball 30-plus times a game and play catch-up is not going to end well. He is best suited when the pressure is off his shoulders and when he can just be an auxiliary part of the offense, not the main act. He is not the guy that is going to be the main act in the offense. I love that you're saying here, one, be aggressive, but try and score as quickly as possible. Try and score as much as possible. Get the ball down the field, attack downfield, take as many shots as you can. I think that if you don't have Dylan Johnson, it is going to be a futile effort trying to pick up yards on the inside, doing any type of running, because he's your best back. And without him, it's going to be even harder. They had a tough time trying to run the ball up the middle against that interior group that Texas has. And if they had trouble against them, they're going to have trouble against Michigan. Michigan's defensive line is better and deeper than Texas's defensive line. Not by a significant margin, but they are better. But if you get caught up trying to run the ball, like you said, take shots. Just keep taking shots throughout this game. And they're best suited to do that. That, to me, is the biggest advantage for Washington in this game, Blake, is the fact that they have such an advantage over their secondary.
Well, Frost in the comment, somebody in the comment section just asked if they're better than Marvin Harrison Jr. Where I don't know if Rome Odunze is better than Marvin Harrison Jr., it doesn't matter. Because what Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ohio State didn't have, they did not have the weapons. At least, let me back up. Ohio State has a really good wide receiver core. They don't have a guy like Michael Penix in a system that's getting them the football like that. You know what? Lock down Rome Odunze. You know what's going to happen? Ask Oregon what's going to happen. Call up Dan Lanning, call 1-800-SAVE-A-HO, okay, if you're Harbaugh, and ask Dan Lanning what happens when you take away Rome Odunze in the first half. Joe, the first play of the game, or the first series of the game, they didn't go to Odunze. They didn't go to McMillan. They went to Polk for the 70-yard bomb, okay? Yeah. They literally play bracket coverage on McMillan. They play bracket coverage on Odunze. And what did Polk do? Said, na boo boo ho, here I come. Okay, you do. I am telling you, Michigan, to me, at least from what I've seen, okay, they do not have the dudes on the boundary that can lock up these dudes for 4 quarters. Now, can they make it 50-50? Can they challenge them more than other teams have? Maybe so. That 1,000% that could happen. But I have not seen it yet. I've seen Maryland, I've seen Ohio State win on you. You have not faced an offense that will attack you like this. You haven't seen a quarterback like this. You just haven't seen a wide receiver core. But I've been taking a lot of criticism about what I've said about this offensive line for Washington. I'm just going to tell you all right, you're about to see. You're about to see, because, Joe, a position that I've played for 13 years of my life, 5 of it being, okay, with a bad left knee toward the ACL twice, all right? I'm just telling you, Michigan can send 4 and get home.
Yes.
I'm done.
Yes.
You're going to be exposed to what other teams have seen, okay? All right, you don't have what – all right, whatever. I'm just going to be quiet.
No. Look, I understand what you're trying to say here. Texas's defensive line is not better than Michigan's in my eyes. I think that from end to end, all of the guys that they rotate in are better than Texas's. But Texas still has arguably a top 10, top 5 defensive line in college football. One of the best defensive lines. And yes, they got home. They made some plays in short yardage areas, and they were able to get in Penix's face a little bit. The way that they played against Texas, I think, effectively prepares them for this matchup with Michigan. Will it be more of a challenge? Yes, it will be a more difficult battle for them to deal with because it's a deeper, more talented group. But at the end of the day, the way that they stepped up against Texas, I have all the confidence in the world that they're going to be fine against Michigan. Sure, are they going to get a sack on Penix, and are they going to, maybe force some sort of a turnover or an errant throw that leads to a 3-and-out or something? It's going to happen. They're going to get home. But as long as they play 75% of their best game, that's enough for them to survive and win it.
I don't think they're going to hold up. I think this is going to be the toughest challenge that they faced. It's a tough, from an offensive line's standpoint, Okay, it's the toughest challenge that they face. I will give them this. Did really well against Dallas Turner. Okay. I mean, not Dallas Turner.
No, Dallas Turner was non-existent in that
No,
game.
but they didn't play.
You're saying with Washington against
Washington.
you're talking about Anthony Hill?
I'm talking about Anthony Hill, number 0 for Texas.
Yes, yeah.
Who I thought had been a really good pass rusher and done some really good things all year long. Okay. Do you remember him having an impact? Joe, they didn't give up a sack. All right.
No.
That would be the one weakness that I would say. Here's another thing, too. We're going to have to start talking a little bit more about Kalen DeBoer. I mean, he's 113-11 as a head coach?
So something ridiculous like that, yeah.
113-11. Washington, you better milk everything that you got out of this guy now. No pause, because somebody that has a little bit more money than you will come calling.
Well, see, I really don't think that he's going to leave, or
Joe,
I really don't think that he's going to go anywhere because,
okay,
and I get that. I understand that.
Hypothetical question.
Wait. They're going to the Big Ten that has a massive TV contract. There is going to be a lot of money floating around for them to pay to keep him. I really do not think that there is going to, and also, by the way, the level of success that he is having right now with low 4 stars and high 3-star prospects is it's commendable. Okay. It's amazing what he's done. He's got no ties to any regions or anything.
Okay, we'll pause. I'm just going to use this school as an example. If Florida fires Billy Napier and they got to get this one right, and this guy has let's just say for argument's sake, he has a 10-win year next year, okay, and he's 123-14, okay, Florida will come calling.
But why the hell, if I'm Kalen DeBoer, after watching all of these coaches fall on their face and then be criticized and crucified by the fan base and the national.
Kalen DeBoer is nothing compared to what Florida has hired. Dude, they hired Sun Belt Billy Napier.
But if he wins the national championship at Washington, why would I, if I'm Kalen DeBoer, why would I leave Washington with a national championship? At least say they don't even win it, with a national championship appearance under my belt. If I was able to get there with Washington and play as good as they did and turn a Heisman candidate guy and into a first round pick and all that, why would I leave a good foundation that I've built somewhere and I've proved that I can win there and then jump and go to a team that has had not any foundation, any consistency, any success? I don't think that there are a lot of options that would incentivize Kalen DeBoer to leave. I really don't.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, you want to get to our preview, our actual preview of the game, what we think is going to happen? Yep. All right, go ahead, and then we'll get to the home field apparel in just a minute.
At the end of the day,
let me lead us into this so you can make a great clip. You ready? Okay. You ready? Here we go. So, Joe, we just got done giving our 2 keys for what each team has to do in the national championship to win. Now let's give our actual preview of the game. What do you think is going to happen in this game, in this national championship coming up on Monday?
I would be the biggest asshat in the world if I didn't continue to ride the Huskies. They have been the vibes play for me all year long. They have found ways to win. They're gamers. Even when their backs are up against the wall, like we saw in the Texas game, they have found ways to win. The ball has just always seemingly bounced their way. More importantly than that and deeper than that, I'm going with Washington for what we discussed here with that secondary issue. Michigan has a good secondary. Will Johnson is going to be a top 50 NFL draft pick. They've got some good players in that secondary. But at the end of the day, nobody has successfully slowed down any of those 3 receivers. And I don't believe that Michigan has anybody on the outside that is going to be able to slow down all 3 of those guys. You might slow down 2 of them. One guy is going to get open. And that is where the leak turns into a flood, which leads to a 400-yard passing day like we saw from Penix in the first round of this playoff. Washington is just too explosive. And because Michigan, as good as they've been and as good as they can be in this game, they do not have the facilities, the capability that if they go down by 10 points and it's the middle of the third quarter, to surge back and score quickly. Texas barely had enough to do that and to get back into the game. and they still couldn't do it. Michigan just does not have the guys. They don't have the playmakers that if they go down by a little bit, this game could be over.
All right. I mean, I'm not going to combat that. Okay. I don't think that I don't think every point that you just made is wrong in my opinion, in my view. I don't know if this game got into a track meet if they could keep up. Like I do think that Michael
they can't at all. There's no shot that they can keep up.
But here's the problem with that. I think they can make more stops than anybody that they've seen because of the pass rush. Right? I really do think that I can't necessarily envision Michigan not getting home to Penix. This, if I'm not mistaken, this Washington O-line has only given up 12 sacks all year. I would not be surprised if they gave up 4 in a national title game and was able to make more stops than maybe that they're previously or they had previously done to them, like against Oregon or whoever it may be.
Okay.
All I will say is Joe, I tend to like to lean, all right, to the team that can control the clock and run the ball better, because I do still think that Washington's defense does have leaks and issues, right? Like there's a reason that they're in the hundreds when it comes to total yards allowed, passing yards allowed. They're still in the 120s. There's still some leakage there. Like our eyes aren't deceiving us on how bad that they have been. That secondary, that front seven at times has been leaky. Joe, I do think that J.J. McCarthy is a better overall quarterback than Quinn Ewers. Sorry. I do.
Yeah,
okay?
It's a hot take.
They're
both mediocre.
It's not a hot take whatsoever. Why? But some people are going to make that a hot take. I think Harbaugh and this team is poised. I think they were down and they came back and they fought back and tied the game. And when it mattered most, they handed it off to their best player, being honest with you, in Blake Corum, and he scores. And I'm not going to pick just yet, but I do tend to lean Michigan.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Well, let me can I give you the reason why? Can I give you my reasoning why?
Yeah.
I have poo-pooed on Washington all year. And I am
doubling down.
1-4. I am 1-4 against Washington this year. The only time I picked them to win was against Utah. Michigan. This is the best thing that Washington can.
Oh, you're lame. You're basically trying to say that, like, Washington fans, you should be happy that I'm picking against you.
You should be glad. But I do still believe that there's an avenue clearly for Michigan to win. Joe, if they hold on to the ball for 35 minutes, if they get that running game going, they're going to be right there. Because again, I still don't think – I think what you brought up was the most interesting thing. I did not think that Michigan would have 5 sacks and a half on a Nick Saban football team. I really didn't. Now, in the second half, they got home once, okay? Like, they cleaned things up. But that defense is really good. Like, that front seven is really good. And my question becomes, if this is the best front seven that they've seen, then what? Can they get home? Can they get Penix to the ground? And can they run the football effectively?
I think at the end of the day, though, they've at least faced good defensive lines that are not far off from Michigan's. I don't think that there is this massive line of separation between Oregon's defensive line and Michigan's, Texas's defensive line and Michigan's, Utah's defensive line and Michigan's. Yes, Michigan is the best one that they're going to face, but they've at least been physically tested by dominant, well-coached front sevens before. They've faced those challenges before this season. Michigan, on the other hand, has not seen anything remotely close to the offense that they're about to face off with. They have no idea if they have the secondary to keep up with them. They have no idea if that defensive line is going to be able to get home against one of the best decision-making quarterbacks in college football. Michael Penix has the best awareness and decision-making at the position, one of the best, what are you giggling about?
Because we just got a super chat, see? Blake, don't you dare pick UW. Stay on that side. They don't want me to pick them.
Yeah. I mean, well, by the way, so I did the opposite. I can now admit this afterwards. I deliberately picked Alabama because every time I picked against them, they won. So I realized if I
you were
pick
cheering
them
for Michigan so
means,
damn hard. Pause.
oh yeah. Oh, look at my whole Twitter feed. Everything was about rooting for Michigan. No, I did that on purpose, and anyone can claim whatever. Look, I'm just going to reiterate this though. Michigan has never seen anything like this, and every time that we think an opposing team is going to be able to slow down Washington, we're very rudely awakened.
Well, on the flip side, every time this time when we thought that Harbaugh couldn't get over the hump, we were wrong.
Well, he's only won one big game though. This is the only one big postseason game.
I mean, Penn State's still a big game. Ohio State's still a big
postseason game. This is the only notable postseason game that he has won.
I mean, but here's the thing though. He's still played and gotten to a Super Bowl. Yeah. Like we're acting like Harbaugh hasn't been
lost though.
Sure, to his brother. The lights went out. Okay, sure, with Colin Kaepernick, I might add. All I'm saying is let's not act as if that he hasn't been there, right? Like the Super Bowl is just as big of a moment and a platform and everything else. The whole take on Harbaugh, he chokes in the postseason. Yeah, okay, I'm with you, but at the same time, the dude's played for or coached for a Super Bowl. He just beat Bama. And Joe, for all we know right now, this time next week, we could be coming out here and saying to ourselves, hey, man, Michigan's got to do everything they can to keep Jim Harbaugh, right? You can't get away from him because he's a national champion. And Joe, they're going to do anything they can. I would not be surprised if they went up to $15 million to keep him now. I really wouldn't.
Well, it's not going to matter because he's not going to win a national championship. And he's just going to be a runner-up, and then he's going to go to the Chargers. Washington will win this football game. You said a second ago that you tend to lean on the teams that can control the tempo, can run the ball as well as they do. This isn't 2000, though. This is 2024. What teams can we look at? Wait.
Who won the last two national titles?
It was Georgia.
But what did they do? What did they do?
They ran the ball and they played good defense, but those defenses were a lot better than this Michigan one. More importantly, let's look at some of the other teams. Wait. Let's look at some of the other teams that have won national championships. LSU is an explosive passing attack.
That's what
Ohio State was an explosive passing attack.
No. Don't get that shit twisted. What people get twisted about that 2019 LSU team, Joe, they will milk the shit out the clock if you let them. Burrow would not allow it to happen.
Washington could do it too if they need to. They just made a couple stupid decisions that were unrelated to milking the
Derek
clock.
Stingley, Grant Delpit, Patrick Queen. They also had 9 dudes on that defense that got drafted and are right now starters. Again, I get what you're trying to say here, but don't act as if that this old school style of football can't win. Wait, Joe.
I'm not saying that it can't, but my argument here is that I have used that conversation point before too. I have said the same exact thing, and I've made the same statement that these old school run the football type of teams are just what's going to help you win. But I feel like every time that we talk about that with a Michigan and an Alabama and Georgia and all these teams, we wasted so much time talking about them. We didn't even bother to pay attention to the things that Washington has done. They're so unique is what has made them so difficult to stop. And it feels like most years, except for the 2 Georgia teams, the teams that have won the national championship have had unbelievable, ridiculous offenses, elite receivers, good quarterback play.
I get what you're saying. Let me just add on to this at the end because we got 2 super chats in here. Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you. I do agree that is an easy possibility that can happen. Okay. But I also understand that it's an easy possibility that we look up into the fourth quarter and Blake Corum's got 18 rushes for 155 yards and 2 scores. I think that's also as easy big of a possibility, right? Hey man, that they can run the football on this defense, and I think that you know that.
I know I do. I do.
Because look, don't let what Texas did in abandoning the run discredit that this team is leaky in the run game.
No, I know that they are, but I just like if they go down and score, all it takes is one or two bad Michigan drives.
I don't think Harbaugh will get rattled like Sark did.
I don't think he will either. But
look, that's why I think they won't abandon the running game because
but they're not going to be perfect though on every single drive.
Sure, I didn't say. God bless. I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. My whole point is that even if they run the ball well, they still have to play defense.
Sure, but the teams that normally control the tempo, Joe. Because let me tell you something: if you get a well-rested Michigan defense, that hey man, our offense just had a 6-minute drive. We've been on the sideline. Let's say they deferred the second half. They have the last possession of the first half. They deferred. Okay, they get the ball back coming out of halftime, and that defense hasn't played for 30 minutes and is well rested. Then what? So there are, you know what? You know who exactly that happened to? Literally Michigan yesterday. You want to know how Alabama came back? They kicked a field goal. The defense was on the sidelines for well over 35 minutes of real actual time. They come back. Joe, what happened in the third quarter? They got blanked. Okay, in the third quarter. They had 23 total yards in the third quarter, did Michigan. So
wait. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like that bad third quarter is proof that they're going to stall at some point, and if they stall, they can't catch up.
But you know who else that happened to until the very end?
Who?
Washington. How did Texas come back from 14 down?
They made a bunch of stupid very simple, stupid dipshit mistakes. It's not like they ran the clock down. They ran the clock down as far as they could run the clock down. They did an effective job of it, despite their limitations of running the ball. And they did it. They couldn't help the fact that Dylan Johnson had to come off and the clock had to get stopped because of that. And then on top of that, their dumbass long snapper running into the kick returner. Those are simple mistakes that would never happen in another football game.
They can be simple all they want to be, but when you continue to make them throughout the year, they're not simple anymore. Wicked Bronco Production says, Blake, sends a $20 super chat, says, Blake, aren't you worried at all about how bad LSU looked versus a trash Wisconsin team, and your important opt-outs were Daniels and Neighbors? Well, they didn't look bad on offense.
It was all
defense. Was so bad they brought Wisco's offense to the 21st century, 7-5 season for 2024. They got a lot of question marks. Wicked, you're not going to come in here and hurt my feelings. They got a lot of question marks defensively that they got to answer. But again, we've seen Garrett Nussmeier for 2 halves now. The first half that or a full game and a half. The last time that we saw him in real true action, I know maybe the end of Bama, was against Georgia, and he threw for 300 yards and a half against a national champion. This one, he throws for 395. Offensively, I think Brian Kelly has gotten things rolling there. It's just they're so bad on defense that, look, it is what it is. He also says, a $20 super chat, Joe, I'll let you answer this one. He says, Michigan's defense is overrated because they play trash offenses. Number 1 top 10 offense in college football that Michigan played. Washington would be the number 1 defense if they played Rutgers Bowling Green every week too. JJ is overrated.
I disagree with that because like if you watch the Michigan games, the way that they played, the way that they beat the hell up on every offense that they played and they smothered them, it was the same thing that they did against Alabama. They smothered Jalen Milroe. Yes, he picked up some nice plays, but they got after his ass. They did that against everybody that they played. And
some mainly because of bad decision-making by Milroe, but most of it was them just getting beat.
Yes. The best example for me is Penn State because Penn State's offense wasn't bad. It actually statistically was one of the better offenses in the Big Ten. It was probably one of the best. And Drew Aller has looked good, but they turned a guy who was looking good and improving on a week-to-week basis and made him look like a freshman, like made him look like a true freshman who's never been taken a snap before. He looked horrible. He looked panicked. They're very dominant. We can't discount Michigan at all.
Very, very, very true. Very true. All right, you want to get to this Caden Salter and the portal thing very quickly before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's hit it really quick.
Okay, so Caden Salter, the Liberty quarterback, announced today that he'll be entering the transfer portal. A really good year. Look, they ran up against a Buzzsaw did Liberty against Oregon, but Salter had a really good year, Joe. Ran for over 1,000 yards, had 1,089 yards, to the best rushing offense in the country, 2,876 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You said in pre-production when we talked about this that you felt that Auburn would just be like feel so good for him because both teams, look, he wants to advance to where he's at. Auburn needs a quarterback so desperately.
Yeah, Salter's one of those guys that, you know, in the scouting community, his name gets brought up a lot. Now, it's not so much that he's going to be a first-round pick per se. If he stayed at Liberty, probably wouldn't have. But him going to a better opportunity to play in a more NFL preparing offense is I would assume what he's going to be looking for. He's good enough to go play at Auburn. He did a lot of really good things that nobody paid attention to because he was playing at Liberty, and he made some really good throws against Oregon, but because of the limitations that they had, the lack of receivers, lack of offensive line, lack of running back talent, they were limited against Oregon. I would imagine that Auburn's going to make the most sense. I mean, they still need a quarterback. How hard is it for Hugh Freeze just to quickly pick up the phone and be like, hey, bud, you know, come home. I recruited you, got you to leave Tennessee to come play for me. You want to play in the SEC again? We're going to go, you know, do some damage next year. And I think it'd be pretty easy to convince him.
You know, look, I'm going to continue to say this, and thank you, Jake. Okay, he does have something in there. We'll get to that in just one quick second. Just one thing on this from me. If I'm Ohio State, I'm picking up the phone call. I'm picking up the phone. You need a quarterback. You need one now. I don't think that you start Aaron Nolan and things just get miraculously better. So,
yeah, that kid in that bowl game. Oh my God.
Yeah, you need to go through the portal. You need to go through the portal because look, I thought Cam Ward was an option. Cam Ward's going to the NFL draft, and I think that kid's going to be a late round pick, and somebody's going to absolutely fall in love with him. I'm going to call it now. Might be the next Russell Wilson. Just throwing it out there.
I think he's the next Jordan Love. I think everyone's going to be like, is he really that good? And then he's going to get picked in the end of the first round. I'm calling that right now on Cam Ward.
You really think that? What's your thoughts on Love? Very, 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 very quickly. Gotta go.
I think he's young and still very raw, and he's improving, which is why I think he compares to Cam Ward because Ward is very young and still improving. And give him 2 years to sit, he could be a really good player.
Jake says Washington beats Michigan exactly how they beat Oregon. Challenge McCarthy's deep balls, press coverage, safeties underneath, stack the box, invite the deep ball. McCarthy is discount Bo Nix.
I actually agree with that last little part. I mean, that's inflated stats, and then when he plays somebody and he gets challenged, he shits his pants a little bit.
You're not cool unless you pee your pants. Is that a good way to end it? Thank you, Jake, for the super chat. Is that a good way to end it?
I think so. Thank you for the super chat.
You're not cool unless you pee your pants. My name's Miles Davis. See y'all soon. Peace.